very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to each and every one of you joining us today for this LinkedIn Live. Every week, I have the pleasure of having a meaningful conversation with authors, speakers, global coaches, and thought leaders. And today is no exception. In fact, the gentleman I have with me today is all four. He's a global best-selling author. He's a renowned global business coach for thousands of entrepreneurs, not only in India, but globally. He's a serial entrepreneur of several businesses and a wonderful human being who I've had the pleasure of calling my dear friend for over 10 years. Welcome, Rajiv Talreja.
Thank you so much, Gautam. It's an absolute pleasure. And I can't believe that we've been friends for 10 years, but we've never done any kind of social media interaction or live before. So thank you so much for having me here, Gautam. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. It's all about the right timing, I guess. And in fact, when I was looking forward to our live today, I was thinking, way back just 8-9 years ago, you were as a student when we were hosting Jack Canfield in Bangalore with the team there. And 7-8 years later, I was a student with you on stage with over 200 entrepreneurs in Bangalore. And I was like, wow, what a wonderful world we live in, to think that the roles were reversed. And it was actually an honor and privilege. I just was quite emotional hearing you speak from the stage, the value, the impact, the sincerity, the authenticity with which you spoke from the stage, and the value that you give entrepreneurs. And just to see those roles, that here we were a student one day, and 8 years later, you're on stage delivering to hundreds of entrepreneurs. I just wanted to acknowledge that sort of story and sort of memory that I had this morning when I was looking forward to our live.
Thank you so much, Gautam. I remember that event too. I think it was in 2012, April, where Right Selection had hosted Jack Canfield in Bangalore. And I was volunteering there at the back of the stage. And I remember this moment so vividly that after the program got done, I was managing the queue while people were coming up on stage and taking pictures with Jack Canfield and taking his signatures. And it was such a overwhelming moment to just see Jack Canfield acknowledge every person, all the 300 people who came up on stage to take pictures, ask them their name. And that memory never has left my mind, because it told me what true masters are. They really acknowledge the presence of every single student. And from there to here, the journey has been phenomenal, and you've been of great support and strength through this journey for me. So I want to thank you too for being a part of my journey.
No, thanks, Rajiv. I think we then hosted Ron Kaufman, we had Bob Urichuk together, and then you've been sharing the stage with the legendary Jack Canfield, where a student is then actually sharing the stage in front of thousands of people. So that speaks leaps and bounds of the credibility and the value that you create for those who've had the benefit of attending your event. So really, hats off to you for your journey. And I know this is just the beginning, and the best is yet to come. And very much looking forward to seeing you continue to thrive, not only in India, but globally.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gautam, for that.
So one thing that I always like to ask my guests, because to me, there's something that drives us from within each and every day. We're driven to do what we do best, make an impact, add value, make a difference, and fulfill our higher purpose. So what I'd love to start by asking you is, Rajiv, what is your personal why?
I think for me, the first time a personal why became evident was back in April 2013. It was in December 2012 that my dad and I went through a financial loss in our own businesses. And when we went through the financial loss, I went through a 70 lakh loss and ran into a 45 lakh debt for myself. My dad went through a 3.5 crore loss and a 1.2 crore debt for himself. And even though we were in debt, somewhere in my head, I was living life from the perspective of dad's there. For every son, their father's the superhero. Dad will figure it out. And it was in April 2013 where, for the first time, my dad broke down in front of me. And something shifted within. And I told myself that day that I need to step up for the quality of life my father's given me. This is my time to step up and put my family's life back on track. And that became a very strong driving force. And from there, little did I know that while I was on the journey of healing my own family and bringing my own family back on track, I started working with small and medium business owners, and I started noticing similar patterns. At the end of the day, these small and medium entrepreneurs are people who do whatever they do for their families. And for me, family is a core value. So today, what drives me, what my big why is to empower entrepreneurs to build scalable, profitable businesses. Because when an entrepreneur becomes successful, they impact the quality of lives of not just their families, but the families of their team members and customers as well. So I'm not a relationship coach, but somewhere the essence of family, the value of family is very strong for me. And I feel enabling, empowering, and equipping entrepreneurs is the best way of serving families across the world. So that's what drives me.
Fantastic. No, that's really great to hear that inspiring story. It actually resonates with one thing that triggers in my mind is that vulnerability is a strength for a leader. And I say that from the context that you shared a very vulnerable moment in your life, a very painful, difficult time that you went through. But you shared that with authenticity and you bounced back from that. What are your thoughts on vulnerability, authenticity as a leader when sharing openly in front of others?
I think we've been conditioned with some wrong notions that it's lonely at the top, and you got to put up a face of strength all the time. I think that's just making a leader too robotic. And I believe that vulnerability is a sign of strength. Only an insecure person will not be vulnerable. A person who's secure about their intent, about what they want, they will be vulnerable enough to fall back on people and say, hey, I am facing this challenge, I need this support. And I think that's what true leaders do. Whatever they do with authenticity, and there's no bigger demonstration of authenticity than vulnerability. So in my eyes, people who are vulnerable, they rank really high for me as people, as leaders you can fall back upon and trust.
Fantastic. I absolutely resonate with your thoughts. So you've coached thousands of entrepreneurs, not only in India and globally. I'd love for the viewers to understand, what is coaching and why does every entrepreneur need a coach?
Well, so you know I have a joke around coaching as well. So I'll put the joke out first.
Sure,
In
sure.
in in 1991, when people did not have a job or they did not have a business, and you ask them what do you do, then most people would say I work with LIC, because that was like a thing, right? Everybody's an LIC agent. In 2021, when you ask people what do you do, if they don't have a job and they don't have a business, they tend to say I'm a coach. So I feel this word coach is overused, misused, and abused in different forms. But if I have to answer the question of what is coaching in its most authentic form, coaching is the power of asking questions to enable people to reflect and create clarity and solutions for themselves. So coaching is not advising, coaching is not mentoring, coaching is not teaching. Coaching is actually using the power of questions to get people to reflect and make choices that resonate with their highest values. For me, that's what coaching is. And the reason why every entrepreneur needs a coach is because coaches don't just help you create clarity, but they also bring in accountability. And I feel one of the challenges that any entrepreneur faces is the challenge of distraction. There's so much happening in an entrepreneur's life that it's easy to lose track of the bigger game, the bigger vision. And I think having a coach helps you stay focused. So I always say this, that for an entrepreneur, the coach creates clarity of your vision, the coach equips you with strategies, the coach handholds you in implementation, helps you face the challenges, because when you implement something new, you're bound to face challenges. And when you face those challenges, the coach helps you to stay on course and not give up. So as a result of all of this, the coach helps you accelerate your growth. Can a person grow without a coach? Yes, they can. But with a coach, you can accelerate that growth. So they reduce the learning curve, according to me. And that's why every entrepreneur should have a coach if they intend to play a big game.
Fantastic. No, that's absolutely great. And I really resonate with what you shared in terms of the power of asking great questions. That's really the role a coach plays in helping us find clarity, have a vision, feel accountable, have sort of the direction where we'd like to grow the business. So that's absolutely. In fact, another example you may give is maybe from the sporting world. I mean, we know that be it the cricketers, be it the renowned tennis players, they have coaches, and despite how successful they are, they have coaches to continue stepping up their game. Do you have a story
Absolutely.
from the coach from the sporting world and perhaps cricket that you could give where you have an example of where a cricketer or a tennis player have had a coach?
Yep. Like I remember this one story I heard from the legendary Indian cricketer Rahul Dravid, and he shared this on stage once, and he said that there was this particular phase of his career where he was playing the square cut, and while he was playing the square cut to hit the ball to the boundary, the bat was turning in his hand, and the ball was taking an inside edge and crashing back into his stumps, and he was
Right,
getting out the same way in consecutive matches, and he did not know what to change. And that's when back then John Wright was the coach of Team India, and John
right,
Wright was analyzing his grip, his batting stance, when is he turning the bat in his hand, everything. And here's what John Wright told him. He said, "Look, Rahul, you're holding the bat too high on the grip. So if this is the surface of the bat, you're holding it too high. So your grip is not strong. So with the pace of the ball, the bat is turning in your hand and the ball is coming crashing into the stumps. Just shift it by 1 degree. Hold the bat a little closer to the surface of the bat. Hold the grip a little closer to the surface of the bat. You'll have a stronger grip and you'll see the ball go to the boundary." And when Dravid shared that story, that really brought out beautifully the essence and the importance of a coach. That you're
right.
too close in the game. The coach is somebody who's watching you play the game from the boundary and analyzing every move and giving you feedback of what are those 1 degree shifts that you need to make that can create that difference between getting out and hitting a boundary. And for me, that has stayed with me forever. That a coach is not just a crutch for somebody who's suffering. The coach is an accelerator even for a champion. So whether you're struggling or you're scaling in your business, if you want to accelerate the journey to the next level, that's where a coach plays a very, very important role.
Great, great, great story and wonderful example, Rajiv. Thank you. It sort of again triggered me to say that, as businessmen, as entrepreneurs, we're busy in our business, and with a coach, you get a helicopter view to get a perspective from the outside, or in the cricketing example, from the boundary line, who'll have a different perspective as opposed to being on the pitch. But thanks for sharing that example. So you've written an absolutely awesome book titled Lead or Bleed. I'd love to know what inspired you to write your book, and if you could share some insights into this book.
Um, so the reason or how the book came about is a story in itself. So, like I shared a little earlier, December 2012, I shut two of my businesses. I went through a financial loss, and from December 2012 to October 2014, I wasted 22 months of my life in desperation, looking for a get rich quick method so I could repay my debts. Because when you're in debts, you are desperate to just get back to zero.
Right.
And for 22 months, I wasted my life in opportunities just because people claimed that these opportunities are amazing. And after 22 months of wasting my life, I had a conversation with myself. I said, you know what? Uh, if I'm not able to build a successful business, it's because there's something missing in my capabilities. And I need to learn how to build a successful business. So I asked myself, what's my option of learning how to build a successful business? Because for 8 years, from 2006 to 2014, I haven't been able to crack the code. So I came up with an interesting experiment. I said, I'll travel across India and I'll meet CEOs and founders of some of the biggest companies across different sectors. And I'll ask them two questions. What is the system to set, track, and achieve goals in every department of the business? What is the strategy to build a profitable, scalable business model? These were my two questions. I took these two questions, went across India. I interviewed 300 business leaders with the premise of the book, saying that, hey, I'm writing a book. I want to interview you for the book, because the book was a good door opener. Nobody would like to give an interview to a broke entrepreneur, but people would like to give an
Right.
interview to
Right.
an author, right? So I said, okay,
Absolutely.
I'm going to leverage the power of a book for my own personal learning. So from October 2014 to December 2015, in 14 months, I interviewed 300 business leaders. I interviewed the
Wow.
likes of Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, who's built Biocon, Ashok Soota, who's built Happiest Minds Technologies, CK Kumaravel, who's built Natural Salon as India's largest chain of salon. And I asked them these two questions and deep dived in the interview to pick on their brains and understand how they build businesses. So this is what inspired me to author my book. And I compiled my lessons through this 300 interviews and finally got the book out in Feb 2016. So the book was actually a research project for my own learning as an entrepreneur. And little did I know that once the book would get published, that so many people would embrace the book, love the book, and buy the book. So I always say this to people, that the only reason to print the book was because I had to show to those 300 people that I actually wrote a book. Then the expectation was family and friends will buy the book, but the family and friends did not buy the book. They wanted the book for free as a gift. But the
Absolutely.
entrepreneurs of the world grabbed the book, and that's when the book went on to be a bestseller in 2 weeks of launch.
That's phenomenal, phenomenal. And as they say, an author is then positioned as someone with authority. And
Yep.
you've asked some great questions to these 300 entrepreneurs, and those insights that they shared from their wealth of experience is an invaluable asset for every entrepreneur, every business owner to get a copy of your books. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So as we know, Rajiv, the last 12 to 18 months, we've been working from home, especially in India. At best, some kind of hybrid model is surfacing now. But, there have been people who've been living in anxiety, stress. People have lost jobs. People's businesses have had to be revamped. We've had to embrace technology like never before. Having said all of these challenges, I'd like to reframe the question, because you've had a great experience in your business having turned dramatically in this time because we've had to go virtual. How would you say, what are your opportunities and learning that work from home has presented in the last 12 to 18 months to you personally and professionally?
Uh, I'm not a big fan of work from home. I'll be honest. For me, people, that connection with people at a workplace is very, very important. Having said that, I think when any change comes, there's no point defying the change. What's better is to adapt and grow with the change. And like you said, that as entrepreneurs, we've had to pivot and we had to explore opportunities. My businesses, out of my three companies, two of my businesses ran on live events. I have a corporate events
Right.
company with my wife, which was largely into conferences, dealer distributor meets, annual day events for large corporate brands. And I have my training and coaching and consulting business, where we used to do events with 1,000 people to 200 entrepreneurs coming into the room, right? So both our businesses were very, very people centric, event centric businesses. And when the pandemic hit, the first 1 week was a honeymoon period, because everybody was like, oh, we're going to chill at home. Now is the time to play Ludo and have fun with the family. 15 days later, you realize that you're not working from home, you're working for home. The geezer's not working. You want to call somebody, nobody's coming in the pandemic. And then after 1 month, it starts hitting you, saying that, okay, now what? How are we going to sustain this massive payroll that we have? And I think in both our businesses, we were blessed to have a team that was willing to adapt, willing to reinvent itself. My entire event management company pivoted to a virtual events model. From a production company, they became a technology company, started building virtual event platforms and streaming technologies and things like that. Our entire training and coaching business went online. Zoom became home, webinars became the stage, and we started working with entrepreneurs. And I think as a business, we saw the rough side in the event management business, but sustaining that first year of the pandemic without firing anybody, without reducing salaries, was a big win for us. When a lot of large event managers had to just wrap up their business and fire people overnight. So for us, that was a big victory to be able to adapt and
Right.
sustain. The training and coaching business for us went through the roof, because entrepreneurs now started realizing the importance of reinvention. And
Right.
reinvention of business can happen only when there is reinvention in a person's skills. And therefore entrepreneurs started valuing training and coaching more. So I think the pandemic, in a sense, has accelerated change. Like what demonetization did to digital wallets in India, with the speed
Right.
at which
Yes.
people adapted to digital wallets, I think the pandemic has done the same thing for digital businesses in India today. People who are
Correct.
selling online, people who are teaching online, people who are entertaining online. The pandemic has been an accelerator. So, what would have taken 10, 15 years has taken 10 to 12 months.
Wow.
And I know and I carry a lot of empathy for those who are not on the right side of the pandemic. See, for any change, you need to be on the right side of the change. If you're not on the right side of change, you face the brunt of change. And
Right.
I think for us, the work and the mission has been over the last 12 to 18 months to be able to support and sustain those entrepreneurs whose business model is not supportive. in an environment like lockdowns and work from home and help them pivot. I think that has been the most fulfilling and meaningful thing for us over the last 12 to 18 months. And
That's
entrepreneurs who've been willing to learn, have adapted, entrepreneurs uh, who have gone into their shell, is just a plea and a prayer to such people to say that, hey, don't give up. It's a new beginning. So let go of that entitlement of how life was before and adapt. That's the only plea and prayer we can make to such people.
fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. One of the things with all the leaders I've had the pleasure of speaking to, they all seem to have one thing in common is what I call self care or self love activities. Be it meditation, be it yoga, be it journaling, be it reading, music, walks, something that they all have some kind of ritual every morning. I'd love to get your perspectives on, what does self care activities mean to you as an entrepreneur and as a business leader?
So I think for me, when I started as an entrepreneur 15 years ago, self care was seen as selfishness, because we've been conditioned to say your business is your mission and it's about your mission, and there's no self in that, right? But soon I realized that my business is a part of my life, it's not my life. And the sooner we realize that our business is a part of our life, not our lives, we start valuing all areas of our life, our health, our relationships, our recreation, our spiritual growth, all of that. So for me, I think self care, without self care, creating something valuable, creating something scalable is a myth. It's a myth. And personally, for me, the kind of self care activities that I immerse myself in is workouts, taking care of my body. I think that's become a very important part of who I am today. I've always grown up and seen myself as a chubby baby, coming with a belief system that hum to khate pite ghar se hain, we come from a Sindhi family, we need eat well, but starting to treat my body with more respect, taking care of the food that goes in, the workouts that I do. I think all of these aspects have become now a part of self-care. And of course, connection time with family has become a very big priority, because there comes a stage as an entrepreneur where you realize that there's no tipping point to reach to where life will become fine. You got to take
Right.
care of all these things throughout the journey. And I think for me, my family, my workouts, these are my two self-care initiatives that I indulge in fully. And of course, if you see the world map at the back, that's a that's a vision board actually, where we pin every country that we've traveled. So for my wife and me, both of us, travel is a very important self-care activity. And yeah, with the pandemic, it took a hit. But back in September 2020, when my wife and I contracted COVID together, our first response was a high five to each other, saying, now we'll have the antibodies to travel. And we made good use of those antibodies and did 9 vacations in a matter of 4 months. And people thought we were crazy. But it's self
Wow.
care for us. It's self care.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really inspirational. Thanks for sharing that, Rajiv.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're a ferocious reader and you enjoy books, and I'd love to hear just maybe a couple of recommendations for you. Which books have really inspired you to be the best version of yourself, personally and also as an entrepreneur? You could share perhaps a couple of books that you'd recommend.
I think without or removing the religious connotation, I would strongly recommend the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's a phenomenal book that gives you the essence of multiple situations that all of us encounter in life. So the Bhagavad Gita has been my go-to book. Apart from the Bhagavad Gita, a book that I'm hooked on to right now, which is very relevant in the existing times, is a book called Artificial Intelligence and its Impact on Power. It's by Rajiv
Wow.
Malhotra, and it's a beautiful book that talks about how artificial intelligence is taking over every area of our life, how we process human emotions, how geopolitics is getting impacted, how jobs are getting impacted, how cultures are getting impacted through artificial intelligence. And I think the book asks a lot of powerful questions, which I love about a book. For me, a book needs to confront me, confront my belief systems. So I'm enjoying this book by Rajiv Malhotra. So that would be a recommendation, very relevant in the present times, considering the way we experience emotions also has changed. today we feel joy when people like our posts on social media and share our posts. That's not the natural way of feeling joy, but technology is conditioning and creating a new paradigm for joy, right? So this book asks a lot of powerful questions, and I'm just loving the process of going through this book.
Thanks for sharing that, Rajiv. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita is something that our dear friend Marshall Goldsmith also, speaks leaps and bounds and references the learnings from the Bhagavad Gita in his teaching as a leadership coach. So I really absolutely agree, and glad that you brought that up for universal interest globally. So that's great. Many of us have a role model. Rajiv, do you have someone or a few who people in mind that you regard as a role model in your journey as an entrepreneur?
um I always I always like picking facets of people. Like, I believe every achiever has that one distinct facet that has been their driving force in their story. And
Right,
for
right,
me, I think there are quite a few such people. Like, I love the 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 detachment of Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Like, win or lose, he's in Sthita Pragna. He's just art of chilling personified. 25
right.
runs required of the last six balls. He's batting. The opposition is nervous. He's not. And win or lose, same response. So that aspect of Dhoni is something that I love. That sense of inner calm. And contradicting that aspect, I also love the intensity and aggression of Virat Kohli. Because I I have experienced both those emotions and I like both those emotions. It's a contradiction, but these are powerful states of being. I love the vision and the magnanimity of Elon Musk. He thinks of problems that most people don't perceive as problems. So the
Right.
magnanimity and the vision of Elon Musk is something that inspires me. I love the moderation of Warren Buffett. On no matter who he is and where he is, how he lives a very moderate and simple lifestyle. So for me, it's about learning from people and taking those facets that make them special and trying to integrate and imbibe and experience those facets. So these are some role models that I am inspired by.
That's a very wonderful way of sharing that, because each and every one of those eminent personalities that you shared has something unique about them.
Yep.
And that's absolutely awesome. Thank you, Rajiv. So, as you know, I had written my book, Breaking Bread, about a year back. Breaking Bread, building meaningful relationships for long lasting success. When I say breaking bread, what does breaking bread mean to you, Rajiv?
um, I love the philosophy of breaking bread that you shared with me once, where you said that true and deep connections are established when you have a meal with a person.
Right.
And uh, for me, that was something that I learned from you, that just to catch up with people, to break bread with them and hear their stories, share your stories and connecting with them. So for me, breaking bread is about connection, because food has a specific and a powerful emotion in our lives. And food with good conversations, can only imagine the depth of the quality of relationships we create. So for me, breaking bread is what I learned from you.
That's absolutely priceless. As you look back, you've had many great meals with wonderful personalities, friends. Is there one story you could share where a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner with someone, when you look back, has transformed the kind of friendships and experiences you've had? One example, one story.
I have a funny one.
Go ahead.
So this was back in 2014, before I decided to write my book. Back in 2014, I was sitting in a bar with a friend of mine, a local bar in Bangalore. It was called, I
Right,
think, it was called the Queen's Bar or something of that sort. I don't drink, my friend drinks. And this was the time I was in debt. And I was sitting and having the peanuts that they serve with the alcohol. And my friend was three drinks down, and he looks at me, and I'm sharing all the challenges I have, how I owe people money and how it's a struggle phase for me and my family, and it's bringing a lot of shame and guilt. And he looks at me and he says, Rajiv, you are a genius. And I said, what nonsense? I'm sitting and sharing my challenges with you and you're calling me a genius. Is this some kind of a joke? He said, no, seriously, you're a genius. I said, you're too drunk. And he looks at me and says, no, listen to me carefully. You work 16 hours a day, correct? I said, yes. He said, you work 7 days a week, correct? I said, yes. He said, even after working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, you don't have money. So you've mastered the art of working hard without making money. That's why you're a genius. And I tell you, that hit me. When I was driving back home that day from that bar, I was pissed at him for taking that jibe. And I was pissed at myself because what he said was the truth. And I think that one conversation over a meal with my friend, I think that changed the direction of my life forever, because it got me thinking about how is it possible that I, as an entrepreneur, I'm working so hard and not making any money? What's missing in my approach? And that's what led to thinking of the idea of learning and reinventing myself. And then the journey of interviewing people for the book began. So that breaking bread, or rather, a conversation where he was having spirits and the spirituality was coming out of him, was a game changing conversation for me.
What a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing, Rajiv. And it's great to hear that. And we always know that this is how the foundation of breaking bread is, whether it's having that energy exchange with someone else, a heartfelt sharing. And as you look back now, it's transformed you to be who you are today. It's been an
Absolutely.
absolute pleasure and privilege to spend this quality time and have a meaningful conversation with you, Rajiv. Do you have any closing words, comments, thoughts that you'd like to share with the viewers today?
Uh, I just want to thank you for having me here, and for everybody who's watching. I would just say that all of our journeys are that imperfect story that we are writing. And the game is to embrace that imperfection and just continue evolving and learning. And eventually, the universe will be kind enough to say, wish granted. So just keep learning, just keep evolving, and enjoy the process. That's the only words of wisdom to close this stuff. But thank you so much, Gautam, for doing this and bringing insightful conversations for your audience and for everybody who's watching.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege. I'm abundantly grateful to you for this valuable time and look forward to breaking bread in person very soon. Loves to the family.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam.